So that need manifests itself really quickly just by us being out there and able to do the little bit that we were doing. And I joke about this all the time. I was BORSTAR Class 3. I think they're on 30-something now. And that I was BORTAC Class 15, and I think they're on 40-something now. Who we were when I was active with the team compared to who we are today, they blow me away. That I couldn't keep up with them, and that's a good thing. You want to see the next generation keep getting better. I'm proud of what they have become. And a good example of that is we had BORSTAR teams where just a handful of us were EMTs and everybody else was first aid and first responders. Now you have paramedics, austere medics, wilderness EMTs, tactical medics, and you have people like yourself that are coming from a very serious background in the military that have been deployed that are bringing that experience with them. It's man, I mean, just to see how far we've come in 2 decades, which really isn't that long, is pretty exciting.
Absolutely. Just shout out to our special operations and the MRT guys out there doing work. Let me ask you this: why is the Border Patrol important for as an agency? Why is it important that they continue to give them the opportunity to kind of grow, get more recruitment, but not even that, for the country's safety? Why is Border Patrol important?
The border is really our last line of defense. And the border is not just a line in the sand. It's not just a river. It's at the airports where people arrive. It's at the seaports. It's between the ports of entry. So there's, up to that point, you have government agencies, the State Department, DHS, that are working in every way possible to project our values on the global scale, to make sure that the environment is conducive for our way of life. And they're trying to make the other countries that are partnered up with us as safe as they can be as well. And we're trying to make sure that we have that visibility about what the threats are that are out there and what's coming at us, so that by the time something actually shows up at our border, that's really the last line of defense. That's the direct action. We either stop them here or they have made it into our house, and the chances of them doing some damage are very, very real. Well, think about this from a Border Patrol standpoint being part of CBP. There's very few agencies in our country that actually touch on all three of those interests that I talk about. And what I mean by that is CBP, Border Patrol specifically, is a security agency. Do we ensure economic prosperity? All facilitation of all lawful trade and travel. That is CBP, the second largest revenue generator for the country behind the IRS because of all the duties, tariffs, or taxes and fees that they collect. And then the values projection. What is the first face that anybody coming into this country sees? No matter if it's legitimate or illegitimate, it is a CBP face. It's either Border Patrol or OFO. That is a very powerful agency in its own right. You have to have that agency, and you need to have those people trained and equipped in the right way to be able to do this monumental job, this monumental mission that we're asking them to do. You can't take your focus off that. You can't cut the funding on that, because if you do, you're opening the door for exploitation, whether that be sneaking things inside of lawful trade and travel, whether that be sneaking people or things in between the ports of entry. It increases the likelihood that the bad guys are going to be successful, and it increases the likelihood that something bad is going to happen as a result in our country, our home. That matters.
How many Border Patrol agents do we have currently employed, somewhere around?
So we have a TO right now of 22,000, and when I left, we had on the order of 19,200. I think they're going to try and add another. Last I saw was another 3,000. It's not enough. I think more attention needs to be focused on the northern border and the coast. That doesn't get near the attention that it deserves. Alaska is a good example of that. When I left, we were working on an Arctic strategy. You do have, climate change. It's taken place, and it's opening up waterways up north that didn't used to be open. And you're starting to see a lot of people that are forward-thinking cast their gaze north. And right now in Alaska, most people don't think about it, but the United States shares a border with Russia because of Alaska. Those two little islands, I think, are a mile apart. And when somebody makes it into Alaska, whether it be from Canada or from the coast, they're in the United States, and it's much easier for them to get into the lower 48 from there. Imagine what it would take to have any kind of awareness or do any kind of border security, not just on those 4,000 miles of lower 48 states with Canada, but that 1,500-mile stretch that Alaska has with Canada. Well, people don't even think about that whenever they think about border security. They don't even think about the territories, Puerto Rico. There's so much that we're missing. There's so many gaps that we need to keep focus on. And it's going to be a generational change, but we have to keep the pressure on and keep building the agency up and its capabilities so that we can one day have that border security that we all think that we should have.
Yeah, you mentioned excuse me. You mentioned the northern border. And you have time? I have two more questions. Do you have time, sir?
Absolutely.
Right. So the northern border is starting to get a lot of attention. We know that things have slowed down on the southern border. We've had several people on here, several guests who would be, I would say, Canada experts, if you will. And they mentioned that there's a ton of drugs happening and crossing through the northern border. That's something that, you know, is kind of new for me to hear. I know the northern border is active on our side from the Border Patrol perspective. But to hear cartels and drugs that are happening is very prevalent in Canada is kind of a new conversation that's happening on the show. We've invited several experts. Is that something that you would agree with, that there's a lot of smuggling and illegal smuggling or cartel activity in Canada?
Yeah, and it's so just people only think about the border as the illicit traffic going one direction. Canada is a good example of how the illegal traffic goes both directions. So you'll have people that are trying to enter Canada illegally for immigration purpose, just like they try to enter the United States illegally. You'll have weapons brought in from Canada or going into Canada. Same thing for Mexico. There's a lot of the proceeds from narcotics and from the criminal trade that gets taken back across the border illegally into Mexico to fund the cartels. But Canada represents a huge vulnerability. And a good illustration of that is when I'm in Del Rio sector and I have about 240 miles of border as the chief, and I had on the order of 1,800 agents and then 200 or 300 support personnel, so about 2,000 people. Now, take that and compare it to when I was the chief up in Holton sector, the entire state of Maine.